everyone, I hope you're all doing wonderful. Should we do a little reintroduction? I'm Wilma, or Will. I use they them pronouns. Welcome back to my channel. This is another video. Did you think that I would stop making content? Perhaps. Did anyone really care? I don't really think so, but I have been very busy, and although I've been really wanting to make like booktube content, I have literally had no time, and so I feel like really excited to be sitting down here today and actually talk about the books that I read the last 3 months. I believe all the way from my last wrap up was of July, but I thought we'd get into it. Grab a beverage, some coffee, tea, water, and let's get into talking about all the books that I read. It's quite a few. I have not been reading. Let me see. It's 8 comics, manga, graphic novels, and then 5 fiction, 1 short story collection, and 3 non-fiction. Oh, and 1 audiobook. So we'll get into that. I will leave all the... Oh, I don't care if you know I'm wearing my pajamas. It's fine. It's fine. We have no secrets here. I'll start with like the comics and graphic novels and manga, and then I'll work down to fiction and then non-fiction, and I'll leave the timestamps for everything down below as always, so you can just get to whatever part you want to hear about. And some of these were like 3 months ago, okay? So if my reviews are not great, just like be easy on me, yeah? But if you're like, we can like reintroduce ourselves, so comment down below like your name, your pronouns, and like a really good book you read recently or what you're currently reading, and let's like get the community back going, you know? So the first like comic that I read in August was Marth Valish maybe. So this is a comic without any words in it. It's just pictures, which I think I only read 1 or 2 before, and I do always like enjoy them a lot because it's very visual and you have to like assume a lot of things and like build a picture yourself in your head, but also it's never like a 5-star because there's something that is missing, I feel always. But the artwork is incredible, and it's like kind of why I picked it up in the first place. I really like the colors, and for here's like a picture of the engine ship, and there's like a language that is Martian or something, and I kind of wish like there was a dictionary for this language so we could like flip to the back and then be able to like translate this ourselves. Like that would be a very fun element to me. It's a very action-filled, packed sci-fi, like really pretty colors. That's our main character. So it's about this like alien warrior, I think, who is stranded for some reason on Mars and is running away from someone who's chasing them, and we don't exactly know like all the story, but then they meet another opposing like Martian soldier, and then some actions start to happen and all that. So it's like a very compact sci-fi of the things that happen like on Mars, and just this little like action thing, and then there's like a reveal at the end that was not expected, and the reveal kind of broadens the world and makes you think more about like what is the existence of these people, like why are they there. So the questions that you have while you're reading it are definitely not all answered, but I don't mind that at all. I kind of enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 4 stars, and if you're interested in comics that don't have like words, I would recommend this one. Then I picked up this one. This is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertake. So this is the same illustrator to Witch Boy, also the partner of, what's their name? Nimona. What are they called? Oh, Stevenson's, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. Noelle Stevenson. And then this is like a really cute kind of like romance between these 2 girls. So do I remember the plot exactly? Okay, 15-year-old Morgan has a secret. She can't wait to escape the life from the island where she lives, right? And so she has all these tasks and very small community that she lives close to the sea, and she kind of like falls in love with this like sea creature, and the sea creature can like, oh god, my nose is itching. She can like become human or something for a while, but then she has to like turn back into like a sea animal, and she can only like come back and like become human every 17 years or something. Wow, I was like, I really don't remember everything, but look how cute they are. I really enjoyed this one. I really like the ending. The art style is like, oh, they're kissing. The art style is like very, I guess, current. Like this is kind of the art style that's very popular right now and what people like to read right now, I guess. Oh, look how pretty that is. Look at this stunning artwork. If I remember right, I was a bit frustrated with this book because our main character, she kind of struggles with herself quite a bit too, and her relationship with her friends, and she like tries to like change her personality, I think. Wow, this was such a bad review. Like, it was a really long time ago, and it's just a graphic novel, so I read it quite quickly, you know? But it was definitely a good pick. Great like read for like teen queer romance with like a magical element, and there's like some like fun like extra plot twist things that happen at the end, which I really enjoyed, so I recommend this one a lot. Next, I read this comic or graphic novel called Onion Skin by Edgar Kamako, and this is kind of like a new release this year that I had my eye on. And it is an adult graphic novel, so you follow these two people who decide to have a food truck together, but for some reason they're being chased by these other people who wants to destroy their food truck. And so we're following that plot line, and then we're also following the past when these two people met, and then the two timelines kind of like go together. But it took me a while to figure out that we were like following two different timelines, and I was very confused in the beginning of like when it was skipping back and forth, because it's not clear at all when you're like in the future. You just have to assume by what is happening in the future, and there's not really a clear distinction. But now I'm telling you that, and so you probably like notice it straight away if you decide to pick it up. The artwork is quite like grim. It's definitely like a different type of graphic novel. Like, it felt refreshing. I usually read like younger stuff, and it was nice to read something like for adults. It's a bit like melancholy, and then it does get really action-packed at the end, and the ending is like so cool, and like everything that happens at the end is like really bizarre, and the whole plot is like pretty serious, but then the ending is like, oh, so it's pretty silly after all, you know? I did enjoy this one. I probably gave it like 3.5 stars. And then I picked up this graphic novel. This is 1 Year at Ellesmere by Faith Erin Hicks. This is a YA/young teen graphic novel that follows this person who's really smart, and she's gotten a scholarship to go to this like all-girls boarding school, and she becomes friends with this girl who her family is like pretty rich, and she's been going there for many generations, so she's like bound to have a spot at the school, but they're both being bullied by these other group of people, and so it's kind of like the story is pretty simple about like their struggle with fitting in, like defeating the bullies, and there's some plots where the bullies are trying to set them up and then they try to get revenge, and like that kind of storyline. It's quite like easy and bright, but the atmosphere is like pretty I guess you could say like a little bit like Halloween academic. Like, there's no magic and stuff, but it's at a boarding school. Like, you can tell it's a little bit like darker energy and stuff, and there is some things that we learn about like both of their families that is really interesting. I probably said this before, but I really hate it when graphic novels have chapters. I think it's completely unnecessary because it's so short. Like, you're just wasting pages to me. Like, just get on. We understand that, you know, sometimes there is a time jump and things like that. It was okay. I probably gave it like 3 stars. It didn't really make an impression on me. It was kind of like mediocre. I don't remember what the book was like trying to say and stuff, which is probably what I look forward most when I read a book, you know? Then I read a comic that I actually had my eye on for a long time because I saw the art style and I was just like, I need to read this, but I'm always hesitant reading book about like EDs and stuff because it's not something that I like enjoy reading in a way. Not that those aren't like important topics to read about. No, not all literature is fun, I know. But I finally picked it up, and that's Eat and Love Yourself by Sweetney Boo, and I really loved it. This was really good. So we follow our main character, Mindy, who is like a young adult, like probably my age, I think. She works at this cafe, and she really struggles like with her relationship to her parents, as well as relationship to her body and her weight and eating in general. And the whole book has a focus on like eating disorders. So like, huge trigger warning for that, because that is like the whole book plot pretty much. But obviously you learn a lot about like Mindy's past. But the fun element about this book is that she finds this candy bar, a chocolate candy bar called Eat and Love Yourself, and what it does that every time she takes a bite from the chocolate, she all of a sudden gets like transported into a memory from her past, and then you get to see these like flashbacks of, not flashbacks, like this is like magic, you know, she's transported into the past, and then she sees like an event that kind of gives you hints as to why she ended up like developing this eating disorder, and she gains clarity about her life and the way she views herself from like seeing her younger self struggle with it. Like, I think what she discovers kind of is that like, why would I cause this like young girl this stress, but this young girl is me, you know, like it's like she learns, like it's very nice story, and I think it's very realistic. Like obviously there's a magic element, but her real life story about what she's going through felt really organic, and how the story is told doesn't really feel like a beginning, middle, and end. It just feels like this is a part of her life, and I love the ending. There wasn't like a big splash of like she's like a new person now, like she's recovered everything, but it was like her slowly like coming to terms with what she's dealing with and standing up to her parents, and maybe like reconciling with some people that she felt like was a missed opportunity to get to know in the past. And I really like this book. It felt really really realistic, and I'll show you the art because the art is like, I think, like really satisfying in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like it's just really nicely done. I don't know, I just think it's really pretty, and I highly recommend this one if you're ready for that stuff, but it is also very graphic. Like they'll show her doing certain things that I can understand is like very triggering for some people, so just be aware of that. Okay, and then I also read another like new release comic. This video is like already pretty long. That is Secrets of Camp Whatever by Chris Grine. I was also looking forward to reading this, and it follows like these teens, and especially our main character Willow, which is like Will basically called, like me, and she goes to this like summer camp, but the summer camp has these different like myths about like Bigfoot and weird stuff going on there. There was even like a kid that disappeared like in this forest in the camp when her father went to the camp, and they still sent her there, which I think is like super bizarre because there's like kids missing and stuff that go there. Like, why would you do that? Just don't go there. But then we wouldn't have this book, you know? And they do, of course, like discover weird things that happen. The whole island's really foggy, and they're told like not to go into the fog and stuff. This is like a very great like Halloween book read. My biggest like struggle with this book is actually the length. It's a bit too thick, and the plot kind of drags on a bit because they like discover like these creatures, and it turns out like, oh my god, like this teacher is like actually a witch or whatever. That's just an example, it's not that specifically. And they're like, this person that they meet is like, oh my god, it's like, yeah, we get it, like they're all actually magical creatures. Like the reveal factor kind of loses its like appeal after a while. Like we get it, and they do kind of like repeat certain events, so it becomes repetitive, and the ending isn't like a big splash in my opinion. Like at the end I was kind of like waiting for it to end. I gave it like probably like 3 stars. Like I wasn't impressed really. The art style is okay, pretty regular comic style, but yeah, like if you wanna binge this for like a Halloween evening or just like a cozy night, like it's not a bad read. I just wouldn't like put it at the top of my list. Then we read, my fishes and I read You, or The Death Stench Creeps by Junji Ito. This is my second Junji Ito. The first one I read was like the spiral one. I already forgot what it's called. And surprisingly enough, like I actually enjoy this one more. This was my Halloween read. I finally had some free time and just sat at a cafe, just like binged it. And like once I started it, I could not put it down. Like I like this one much more than the spiral one. I think the spiral one was like trying too hard to be out there, and this one's all my worst fears packed into one thing. I'm not really scared of the spiral thing, but this one was like, this is my fear, you know? Like that's why I feel like I like this one more, because it was like really creepy to me. And the spiral thing's like not that creepy, to be honest. But what happens is that this couple travels to this island for like a vacation thing. Our main character is the guy, kind of, and his girlfriend has a very sensitive nose, and she starts smelling like this rotten smell everywhere, and she keeps yelling at her boyfriend to like clean it up, find the smell, like fix this problem. and then all of a sudden there comes this like fish with legs, like running and stuff, and it is rotten, like the fish is dead, but it has legs, and all of a sudden it kind of like escalates and it becomes an invasion of sea creatures coming up from the ocean with these legs, and they're like monster hungry, like they're in for blood, you know? And then we get like, it kind of just gets worse and worse and worse because you learn like why they have legs. Like, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it really takes off, you know? Like, it's not just about this, it like, woo! But yeah, I'm really scared of the ocean and sea creatures, so just that is like, please stay in the water, like, don't come over here, like, it's fine, like, you leave me, I leave you, we're good, okay? I'm really scared of, like, zombies and dead stuff. I am pretty terrified of, like, infections and things that can, like spread. I'm scared of like the undead. Like, I can't even imagine dying and then not being dead. Like, I want to die and then be dead, you know? Like, I don't want that shit to like keep dragging on. And I'm also scared of like human inventions and like everything that we're not told in the media, and of all like secret like projects that go on in the world. Like, this book just packed all my fears into one, so that's why I think it really worked for me. But oh my god, the ending! It was really good. Like, I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to pick up, like, Tomi is like also a very popular one. I'm really excited to read it. Oh, okay, sorry, it's fine. You know, his art style is like very iconic. Look, here's a shark on legs. Like, doesn't that terrify you to death? But also I just want to mention, like, oh shit! Oh shit! Oh! Like, who gets this scared from just like opening a page of the book? I wasn't prepared! Wow. How did I read this? I also really enjoyed the short stories in the back. There was one in particular called, this one, The Enigma of Amigara Fault, was a really good short story collection, and if you can find it somewhere, like, and just want to get a taste, like, that's a great taste of Junji Ito. It kind of reminded me like the one with the people in the wall everywhere. Like, it kind of reminded me of Steven Universe, like, you know, like these ones where like the gems are born and come out of, but obviously it has nothing to do with that. But I loved it. Well, I haven't been here for a minute, guys, so it's fine if the video's a bit long. You know, imagine just like catching up on the last couple of months. Okay, we have one more comic to talk about. Also a release that I was really excited to read this year. This is The Hazards of Love, Book 1, Bright World by Stan Stanley. This is like a very queer graphic novel, and it starts off following Ampuru has a crush on this girl, and they kind of don't really get to start the relationship because this cat kind of steals their name and takes over like their body, and so they go to this like other realm called Bright World where all these magical creatures are. It's kind of like a, yeah, alternate world. All these different creatures are that are very vicious, and Bright World is a very dark place. It's not bright at all. And it's very vicious and brutal, and in this world they like treat humans like slaves and eat them, and they have no value, especially if they don't have like their name and stuff. So Ampuru completely forgets their name. I didn't like this graphic novel at all. I was excited to read something with like a very different graphic novels, like illustration style. Like, I've never read something with, or seen something with black pages. Like, the illustration style is like just very, very different and unique. And I was excited to try something like this because I've never seen it before. And although like it was a nice experience, it did get a bit exhausting to look at because it's hard to see like depth in the art style when it comes to like foreground, middle ground, background. And it does get like all a bit muddled together. But more than just like the art style, the story was very convoluted. It dragged on a lot, like while Ampuru was in Bright World. And by the end, they don't even get out of Bright World because this is book 1 and it just continues, and I was like, at least like get out of Bright World, like. But it's like, it's so frustrating, and Ampuru goes through the worst possible things in Bright World, and it's really, really brutal. Like, their arms get decapitated, and like, it's really gross, and unnecessarily brutal, and I like don't really understand what age this is for because it seems like very adult in some ways, but the characters got kind of like teens, but then they like bleep out the swear words while everyone actually knows what it says. So I don't know if that was like the publishing company like doing that, or I don't want to turn anyone off of reading this because like I think if you like it, you're really gonna like it, and the story is super unique, like really truly unique. And I am kind of curious to see what happens next because I do want the best for Ampuru, but it was just like not for me at all. And I do recognize that there might be like plots and metaphors and storylines that I just can't really see the actual meaning of, you know, like maybe there is some like cool interpretation that I'm just not picking up on, which is kind of a pity, but it took me ages to read it too, so I kind of like lost the continuity of what this story was like trying to do, which is pretty sad. But yeah, I'm done talking about it now. So those were all the graphic novels, comics, and manga that I read in the last 3 months. Now let's get into the fiction books. This is so weird because it's such a long time ago since I read these, but early in August we did the Avatar The Last Airbender readathon, and I like struggled to be present. I struggled to read those books, but I read this one, which was like the book club book, The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Lee, and this was like actually a good book. Like people recommend this and I understand why. It is a great exploration of Kyoshi and how she came to be in her time. Like you learn a lot about her backstory and who she was and how she became to like be this legend, and I will definitely continue with the series because it's very engaging. It did end on like kind of a cliffhanger, and I did have like questions about where the story is going next, you know? And it was really fun to learn about potentially how you can see certain things build up to become Avatar The Last Airbender series that we know, and how the world came to be like that, and like backstories of that and stuff. And I really liked it. It's really good. Kyoshi is like bisexual, so like she has like a relationship with like different people, but the ultimate ship is like very, very shippy. There's a lot of action at the end, possibly like too much action, but definitely like very engaging, very fun, exciting. I had to like what was it called, listen to the audiobook like 7 hours straight before the live show to be able to finish it, so the last like bit was definitely like a little bit rushed for me. But just be prepared that like all your favorite characters are gonna die in this. Like everyone dies, and it's so sad and really unexpected, but it's a good read and it's a good YA. But we know like I don't totally vibe with YA, so it's not my favorite. But it was okay. Then I put this little ribbon here to talk about an audiobook that I listened to called Boy Part by Eliza Clark, about this woman called Irina who is an artist, and what she does is she takes nude pictures of men very artistically and puts them in like galleries and this kind of stuff, and she also works at a bar job. I didn't know that this was like kind of a thriller, so the like some of the like reveals that we got, I was like, whoa, this is not normal, you know? But just because I didn't know what genre the book was I guess like my fault. But I think that also made me enjoy it more because I didn't expect it, which I guess I ruined for you now because by telling you what genre it is, but I also want you to know like what you go in for. And we follow Irina as she makes like questionable choices, and we do learn some things about like her in the past and some of the guys she took pictures of in the past, and her intentions become like more and more murky. She's definitely one of those like characters, or this is like one of those books where it's like questionable morals of a female character kind of story. So if you like those books where the protagonist is like a little bit unhinged, but you know there's also secrets that she's like keeping from us, the reader, that eventually get revealed, like I would really recommend this one. I really liked Irina as a character. I remember her like quite vividly. She's really kick-ass and like an interesting character, but she's also like you don't really like her, but you also like her because you're like following her perspective. So I recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I also listened to it as an audiobook, and the audiobook was really, really fantastic. I am looking forward to getting a copy because, you know, I'm a little bit strange like that. Then I read Starland by River Solomon. Let me switch my position. This was so good. Like, I did not expect it. Everything I've heard about this book and the plot wasn't appealing to me, but then I read it and it was amazing. It was stunning. It was so good, and I was very like hesitant because I read River Solomon's The Deep, and I wasn't vibing with it. I thought it was simultaneously like too short and not in depth enough, while also being kind of slow. So when I read this, I was like, I'm not sure I'm gonna like the writing style and like the book and everything. It's also longer, so I was like stressed about it. But it's so good! It was fabulous! I highly recommend this book. So you follow our kind of like young girl in the beginning, and she has lived all her life in this, I would say, like black cult who is very like anti-white. And it's very interesting because like a lot of things that the cult has told them about like the outside world and stuff is like great morals and like good stuff, but then there's so many sketchy stuff going on in the cult because it is a cult, you know, and they're completely like protected from the outside world and they don't know like anything about technology or the outside world at all. But our main character, she runs away from this cult because she gets pregnant. Her husband, I believe, is like one of the cult leaders, and she's very young and she gets pregnant and she runs into the woods, and then she gives birth to the twins in the woods and raises them there until they're like 4 years old. It's a very queer book, you know, like River Solomon is also like non-binary and stuff, but like the genders of like her children are like very queer, and also like our main character is like very queer in the way that like also sexuality, but I think gender too. Like she doesn't really relate to gender because she's like lived in the woods and this cult and stuff, and it's very interesting that way. But then she meets the outside world and all of a sudden like she learns so many things about the cult and like the backgrounds of why it exists, how it runs, and like just stories about like her family and her friends, and like it's just like it's really really good. And the mushroom thing going on, like how do I even talk about this book? Like it's really good. I gave it 5 stars. Highly recommend it. I can tell that I'm like not practiced in like talking about books anymore. Like I'm so rusty. But I really love this one. It's probably gonna be of like some like my favorite books of the year list for fiction. I thought it was so good. I think I listened to this as an audiobook. I don't know why I'm thinking about that now. But yeah, I listened to this as an audiobook. I don't know why I didn't remember that. That's so weird. That is really weird. Well, it was such an immersive audiobook, like I felt like I was reading it in person because I don't remember listening to it. Like I felt like I was there in the story. Then we have Three Keys by Kelly Wang. This is the sequel to Front Desk. This is a middle grade book following our main character Mia Tang, whose parents, and I mean she herself too, are immigrants from China. And in the first book they kind of like start working at this motel, and they're working really hard and they're struggling with, you know, like racism, like finances, working conditions, like so many different things. And Mia loves writing and she uses that to like help her family. She was such a lovely character because she's so driven but also really really intelligent and smart in the way that she sees solutions everywhere, and also a great friend. She has one friend who is I want to say Mexican immigrant as well, who has like her own struggles, and this book focuses more on that, and also new laws that come into play where undocumented kids are not allowed to go to school and stuff. And so her friend is really scared of like, you know, a lots of things, and it talks about like deportation and laws. This one in particular, like it's just really really good. Like I'm so impressed with Kelly's like ability to write about these like really adult serious issues but make them very clear and understandable for like kids who are reading this, while also like painting the seriousness of a situation, while alongside that like fostering the hope in these kids. Like I talked earlier about seeing like the possibilities. It is like such a good book, and it also like paints like school picture, I think, on what Mia and also like her friends who are immigrants like go through in school and the racism that she like as a child faces from the teachers and stuff, and like how the teachers like gaslight her and like her friends into believing that she's not experiencing racism. Like, it's very, very interesting, and I got so frustrated and I get so engaged when I read these books, but they're just so well created, like both of these. And I'm very curious in reading Parachutes, her more like teen book. I've heard it's a difficult one, and it definitely has a cover that like looks like it's not my type of book, but I really enjoy her writing. I highlight always so many things because she's just so on the nose about certain issues. At least that's like how I feel as someone like will never understand like this racism, especially like as a child. I felt like I like really understood it, and I would recommend like this as something like if you have kids or if like you're a young person, like definitely give this a shot, because it, like I think people need to read this, and like young people need to read this one. It's so good. But obviously look at like Own Voices reviews and that kind of stuff. Then I picked up the short story collection that I've actually been reading for a really long time. That is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez. This is a short story collection. I believe the author is Argentinian. That's in it's translated. Is that real? She has another book, Things We Lost in Fire. No, just kidding. The author's Spanish. So I found that I've really enjoyed books that are translated from Spanish. I don't know why this is. Like, sometimes I'm attracted to like certain like books from a certain region, or sometimes certain translations like really work because the language that it is originally written in has ways of writing that when translated into English make it really unique. I hope that makes sense. I also really like books that are like from Chile, Argentina, that are translated. So I was very curious to read this one. And it's a kind of ghost, I would say, supernatural horror short story collection. A lot of them are kind of like similar in vibe and everything, because it does focus on like the dead and ghost and that kind of thing. Some of them are like very gritty and gross, and some of them are like much lighter and kind of taking inspiration from like myths, cultural myths and that kind of thing. But I saw Sean posted about this as well. There's one called Meats in this. That I was reading it, I was just like, what am I reading? I gotta turn the page, but what the hell is this? It was definitely something. But like a very good short story. So I think I gave this like 3.5 stars. Like, some was very good, some were like not as great, but I recommend it all in all. I think I lean more towards like speculative horror rather than supernatural horror. But I still really like this one, and the one that is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, I also really liked. I think it's the last short story. This is not a funny story, but my great-grandpa actually died from smoking in bed, so don't do it. It's not funny. Don't smoke in bed. I'm very serious about that. It's true, he did. Okay, we have 2 more fiction books to talk about. The next one is The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valente. I love Catherine M. Valente's writing. I read 2 books by her before and given them both like very high ratings. And I still haven't read like Radiance, I think, that by her that I really want to read, as well as I think it's called The Mechanical Girl, which is another like short fiction book. But this is, I would say, a young adult that takes place in this dystopian future where there's only a few humans left and the water has risen above all land, but there are these islands that have been created with garbage. Like, you can see like the letters in the title are like garbage islands, kind of, full with garbage. You can actually see it here, like it's kind of funny because it's such a satire on the fact that we recycle and organize our trash. But like, what is the point of like organizing our trash in a way? Like, if it's all gonna be burned, like I know there's different processes and stuff, but in this book, like all the trash is organized by like category. So our main character has grown up in Candle Island, and then there's like Electricity Island, who has like electricity stuff, and like Tire Island. They're not called that. They're actually called names that sound like other names that of cities that come today, but some words are exchanged for like that part of land has been built up of, and people are like different depending on like what they're surrounded with and stuff. It is a very like on the surface kind of like dark comedy book, and it's very bizarre in the way that the author has chosen to make this story, because it seems very camp. Like, I feel like that is the word. It seems very camp and unlikely that it would turn out this way, and the world seems very animated, and there's way too many things that are assumed. And in the beginning I was very much thinking like, this doesn't seem realistic, like why has the author chosen to do this way, like it just doesn't seem like the best way to tell the story. But little did I know that it would like deeply affect me. I cried a lot throughout this book. I loved it so much. Like, this is also like a new favorite. Like, it was just so good. There were so many moments that I like really deeply felt. And part of this book and the plot is that our main character, they call like us, the people who live today, like fuckwits, and in a way they thank us for giving them this world that they live on, while also acknowledging the fact that we take everything for granted and completely messed up like the planet. And so that relationship is really interesting, and when she like finds memorabilia from our time, and it just like the book went in a direction that was just so good. Like, I don't know how to explain it. This was just like so fantastic, and I really like vibed with the main character. I understood her like feelings of like feeling grateful for the little things she had in a way, but also being like so resentful. And the characters she meets and the way the plot goes is just really good. It does kind of jump a bit from the past to the present, but by the end it makes sense more than it does while reading it, which I really loved. And then there's more reveals about like how the world turned out that way. That was just really well done. Like, this book was so good, and I can really understand why people don't get it, because it is like a little bit too camp to be so good. Like, I don't know how to say it, but I don't know how else to say it, but if you read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, lastly, this is the last book I read pretty recently, How Beautiful We Were by Mbola Mwe. This is the climate fiction book club that we had for October on my channel. The live show is still up if you've read the book and want to check it out. This book has a heavily focus on like climate change in like local communities. Specifically, this book is about this fictional city in Nigeria, I believe, who this company Paxton has basically created like pipelines and drilled in their land, and it's making them all sick. It's killing like the children. The story is about like the relationship between the community and Paxton and all the people within the community, how they rise up against it, like their determination, their struggles, their daily life stuff. So it's a very like community-centered story that focuses mainly on the characters, and every second chapter is written from the point of view of like the children, as in a we perspective. And I really enjoyed those chapters, and it made me want to read more books that with a like we narrative, like a collective narrative. And every second chapter is written from one of like a character from this one family that we're following the most. And we get much more about their like personal backstory and that kind of thing. So it feels like very personal, because you get to know these characters and this village so well, while also like focusing, like we as the reader, we understand like more the global like context of it, oil industry, money. It also connects like the plot to the US and lawyers, and like there's all these different themes. It's very interesting. I think we had a great discussion, and there's a lot to like think about in this book, but I think we came to like the collective thought that this book wasn't really trying to say anything, just more to like show you this situation kind of, and all these perspectives. But yeah, this was really good. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. A bit repetitive at times, like I wish it was a bit less repetitive because there was a lot of things that were said again and again. That's the only con I have. Then lastly, let's go over the 3 nonfiction that I've read. The first one that I also read for the Avatar The Last Airbender readathon was Sitting, I thought it was called Sitting Pretty. Oh, it's Pretty is down here. Sitting Pretty, The View from My Ordinary Resilient Disabled Body by Rebecca Taussig. I also listened to this as an audiobook, and I believe the audiobook is read by the author herself, so I really enjoyed that. This is a very like conversational, casual book, so it makes you feel like it's a bit more of like a podcast format, but it is really well written. I loved everything that I got to know about the author, her story. Do I specifically remember like specifics? I remember there was a lot of great like anecdotes about her life, and I think the book is built up more of like essays, and it does like connect some themes throughout the book. But I really liked it, and I think, oh yeah, I remember what I really liked about the story is that she tells about how she grew up with a family like on the countryside, I believe. She really didn't believe that she was disabled until she like grew up and discovered that this was like a problem in a way, and how her family never viewed her as like different, or like, I don't know, like she never realized that this was like a weird thing, which obviously it isn't, but I don't know how to say it. It was very nice to hear her unique perspective and story growing up, and like all the different like struggles and joys and experiences that she had like from childhood up until now. It was also pretty funny, and I remember laughing out loud at like different parts, and I really recommend this one. I believe I gave it 5 stars. It's definitely one of those audiobooks that I feel like I can just like play at any time and re-listen to because it was really enjoyable. Then I also picked up The Soil Will Save Us by Kristen Olsen. This is a nonfiction on like agriculture, how we've ruined the soil, and how nutritionizing, that's not a word, but like fixing the issues we have with the soil can save us from climate change. And that sounds like a little bit bizarre just in that, but the book goes into those things. I also listened to this as an audiobook, but I would love to read it in person to like go over it. I say that with every like book I listen to like on audiobook. I'm like, I want to reread this. I said a year ago I wanted to reread Braiding Sweetgrass. Have I done it? No, I still want to do that. God damn it. There's just so many books in the world that I'm like, do I really want to reread this one? I should, right? I really should. I know I should. But it's super, super interesting, and it also talks about like pesticides and like why we think we need pesticides. It's just like, it's very, very interesting, and I learned so many things. And I mean, there's like more species, like living species under the ground than it is above ground, which just makes you think, right? Like, wow. And it also goes into like science of what happens in the earth, about agriculture, and it definitely touches on like things, from example, like from Braiding Sweetgrass, and references like practices and ideas from that, but it definitely doesn't have like that point of view because the author is not an Indigenous person, you know? But I think like reading this, for example, together with Braiding Sweetgrass would be a great combo, because this is a bit more like scientific and technology based, but the other one has like the energy and the, what was that called, reciprocity that this technique needs to be approached with, you know? And I felt like those books would go really great together, but I highly recommend this one. I'm also really passionate about how food is grown, and how what we put in our bodies, and not only for like our health, because we need like microorganisms, and when we like eat from like pesticides food, we don't get like the bacteria from the earth that like our body needs to function, and our like intestines need to work, and so it depletes like our bodies of that nutrition as well, and we need like dirt, you know, in our system. That's kind of like not what this book is about, but I think it's like very interesting how those things go hand in hand, and I really like this book. I thought it was great. I think it's very important, and we're actually going to be reading My Year of Meats by Ruth Oseki for the Climate Fiction Book Club in January, and that book does focus on like meat production, agriculture, from like a different lens, so I hope we'll have some discussions from like this book and stuff in January on that live on my channel. Also follow Climate Fiction Book Club on Instagram. I'll link that down below, but I think that's going to be really fun and interesting. Then, the last book I want to talk about today was also from the Climate Fiction Book Club. We had this live on Sim's channel, so I'll link their channel down below and their video. And this one's called The Red Deal: Indigenous Action to Save Our Planet by the Red Nation. This is such a important book in the way that I think no matter where your activism lies or like what type of activism your heart pulls to, like I feel like you need to read this because I think it essentially talks about how all of these issues that we sometimes see as separate and the marginalizations that people experience as like separate issues, but they're all the same issue and they're connected a lot to climate change, and how like climate change is a racial issue, it's like an indigenous issue, it's like economic issue, like it's all really, really connected. And this book I think opened my eyes more to that, and it talks a lot about like how USA is continuing to practice imperialism and colonialism, and how we don't really talk enough about that, but it paints it in like such a clear light. Like sometimes this book would say stuff I'm like, of course it's like that, like why haven't I thought about that before or like seen it from this point of view, but the book just like hits it on the nose, see it so clearly, and I think this book is so important. It's so important, and I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. And I also gave it like to my mom to read. But I do think like just in general, like regardless of like if you actually want to read this book or not, it's really important to see how like the issues of the world are connected, because there's no issue that's not connected to another and the whole picture, you know? And we really need to see that, so that when we go into an activism for like for example, if I'm saying like the thing I'm passionate about is like Black Lives Matter, for example, whatever, I need to be able to see like this issue not as like a concentrated issue, but like everything else. And I think that's definitely like particularly important when it comes to climate change, because it disproportionately affects like POC, Black people, Indigenous people, the Global South, you know, and the people of the things that they struggle with the Global South are like very connected to economic and political issues and imperialism and colonialism, and like it's all so connected, so we can't really discuss one thing and try to save the planet from this point of view without like taking into consideration like all these different things that are clearly connected and clearly can help each other's causes, and like together we're more powerful if we think about this like whole picture, all dots connected. This was such a long video, oh my god, but hopefully you guys appreciate it and can like see that, you know, we haven't done this for a while, so like I hope you stuck around to the end and like had like a good time. Maybe like bullet journal a little while we're doing this, maybe like cleaned your room or something while we're doing this. Maybe you were drawing some, sewing, I don't know what you guys are up to, but I hope you enjoy this video, and don't forget to comment your name, pronouns, and what book you're reading right now. Yeah, maybe comment like coffee cup. And hopefully I'll chat with all of you soon. Have a great, wonderful, brilliant day. Bye!